In the remote wilderness of Montana, Timand, Robin Carter always dreamed of having a family, but not in the traditional sense. Their hearts were set in raising bobcats, not children. They had created something extraordinary, a quiet sanctuary where 3 rescued bobcats had found peace but their world. And everything they believed about resilience was about to be tested in ways they never imagined. A call came in. Tiny bobcat cub had been found. His name was Clark. His injuries were devastating. His hind legs partially paralyzed, his future uncertain. Most facilities would have recommended euthanasia. Most experts said he would never walk again. Just when hope seemed lost, an unexpected answer arrived. Her name was Lucy, a gentle yellow Labrador mix with an extraordinary gift. She had a way of understanding broken creatures, a calm that brought comfort where medicine could not. What happened next would challenge everything. Wildlife experts thought they knew about rehabilitation, about cross-species bonds, and about the quiet, unstoppable power of companionship. This is the story of 2 unlikely friends, a paralyzed bobcat and a gentle Labrador, who together would define medical predictions, break down barriers, and rewrite the rules of wildlife rehabilitation forever. Before we start, hit the like button, make sure to subscribe if you have not already, and tap that notification bell so you never miss another wild, emotional story. The morning sun filtered through the tall pines of northern Montana. Its golden light spilled across the land, warming the sanctuary that Tim and Robin Carter had built with their own hands. They were 53 and 51. Both had walked away from everything familiar. Tim, once a wildlife photographer; Robin, a retired veterinary technician. They had left it all behind to follow a dream few could understand. A dream that began 12 years earlier on a snowy morning in Wyoming. Tim had been crouched in silence, camera pressed to his eye. When he saw her, a mother bobcat, with her cubs through the glass of Heisland, something shifted. It was not just beauty. It was purpose. Robin had felt it too, standing beside him, her voice barely above a whisper. "We could do this," she had said, her green eyes bright with something fierce. "We could give them the life they deserve." But the road ahead was not easy. For 3 years, they faced nothing but barriers, endless paperwork, inspections, meetings. The USDA Fish and Wildlife Service, Montana's own department, all had to be convinced that this dream was possible. Their property was inspected again and again. They built specialized enclosures, medical-grade facilities, everything a wild animal would need to improve his skill, not just behind a camera, but with living, breathing creatures. Robin drew on a lifetime of care and healing. Their first success came with Sage, a 6-week-old female cub rescued from the shadows of a trafficking ring. When they brought her home, they wept. "She's perfect," Tim whispered as Sage stepped carefully into her new world. Her coat was soft and spotted, her paws oversized and clumsy, but she moved with quiet courage under their care. Sage flourished. She grew into stunning adult 38 lb of quiet strength, but her presence meant more than numbers. She was the proof that they had been right all along. Bobcats, when raised with love from infancy, could bond deeply with humans. Sage would purr like a motor. When Tim scratched behind her ears, she would curl beside Robin as she worked at her laptop. They believed they had found their rhythm until tragedy struck. Their second rescue, a male cub named Rocky, bright eyes full of promise, but at just 4 months old he was gone, feline leukemia. They had tried everything, every medicine, every sleepless night, but it was not enough. Tim and Robin were devastated. They questioned everything. Was this a sign? Were they in too deep? For a while they considered stopping, but Sage would not let them. The once playful cat became quiet, withdrawn. She paced restless, her eyes always searching. They spoke with wildlife behaviorists and learned something surprising. In captivity, bobcats could crave companionship, so they tried again. Her name was Luna. Another female cub orphaned after a farmer shot her mother to protect livestock, but Luna was not like Sage. She arrived sick, thin, full of parasites. Robin moved into the medical wing they had built. She fed Luna by hand, gave her medicine every few hours, held her through the fevers. "I am not giving up on her," Robin had whispered one night when Luna's body trembled with heat. The next morning, Tim found his wife asleep on the floor of the enclosure, Luna curled tightly to her chest. Both breathing in rhythm. Luna's recovery was nothing short of a miracle. Within 6 months, She had not only reached a healthy weight, she had taken her place confident bowl. She became the more dominant of the two, Sage and Luna, two rescued souls, each different, each vital. Their bond brought joy to Tim and Robin in ways words could never capture. Sage and Luna had become inseparable. They chased each other through the snow, they splashed in the pond during the summer, and play fought with such intensity that it startled visitors, but to them it was pure affection for 2 years. Life settled into a rhythm. Tim returned to wildlife photography, often using Sage and Luna as models for conservation work. Robin split her time between the sanctuary and the local clinic, caring for others while never neglecting her own wild family. Their home, their story, began to spread. Wildlife enthusiasts grew curious, and soon school groups and researchers came to visit, learning what love, commitment, and wild hearts could look like. Then everything changed. The call came from Colorado. Dr. Patricia Mendes from the Wild Heart Sanctuary. Her voice was tight with urgency. A young male bobcat had been found in a remote hiking area, only 8 weeks old, alone. Broken, he had suffered devastating trauma to his spine and hind legs, likely from an attack or a fall that had claimed his mother's life. His name is Clark, Dr. Mendez said softly, over the phone. We have stabilized him, but the neurological damage is severe. His hind legs are partially paralyzed. Her pause was heavy. Most facilities would recommend euthanasia, but she had heard about the Carters, about what they had done for Sage, about how they had saved Luna. I know you already have 2 females, she continued, but Clark needs a miracle. Robin did not hesitate. We'll take him, she said. Send us everything. When can we arrange transport? Clark arrived on a frozen December morning. The specialized animal transport van wounded its way carefully through the snow-covered roads. Tim stood outside the converted barn, now the recovery ward, waiting, heart pounding. When the crate door opened, he stopped breathing. Clark was so small, too small. His fur was dull, his body thin, but it was his eyes that struck him the hardest, bright yellow and filled with something no cub his age should carry, a tiredness far beyond his weeks on earth. Most heartbreaking of all were his legs. They dragged behind him, limp, lifeless, as he tried to move toward the light. Oh, sweetheart, Robin whispered, kneeling beside him. Already in veterinary mode, she had spoken with 3 wildlife neurologists before Clark's arrival. They had warned her his right hind leg was worse than the left. There was still sensation, still the tiniest flickers of hope, but walking, running, leaping through brush and trees, the very essence of what it meant to be a bobcat, seemed out of reach. Their rehabilitation was brutal. Clark was placed on a strict regimen: anti-inflammatories, pain meds, supplements to nourish frayed nerves. Twice a day they worked on his legs. Robin gently moved them, stretched them, while Tim tempted him with soft toys and treats, trying to coax even the smallest motion. It was exhausting. But Clark never gave up. He dragged himself across the enclosure, with quiet determination, tried to pounce on toys, and often failed, landing in awkward, painful heaps, but he always got up again. He always tried again. Something inside him refused to quit. He was playful, curious, stubborn qualities that had no right surviving inside a broken body. But months passed and something began to change, a pattern they could not ignore, even as Clark adapted to his disability with courage. But over time, something began to shift in Clark. He was becoming increasingly isolated. Sage and Luna meant well, but they were bobcats. They wrestled, they chased, they leapt, and Clark could only watch from the sidelines. One evening, Tim noticed the change. He sat quietly watching Clark lie alone, while the females played like they always had. He is getting depressed, Tim said softly. Look at him, he is giving up. Their consulting veterinarian, Dr. Jennifer Walsh, had been monitoring Clark's recovery. She had seen the physical changes, but now her concern turned emotional. During one of her monthly visits, she made a suggestion neither Tim nor Robin expected. Have you ever considered a companion dog? They both stared at her. A dog with our bobcats, not just any dog. Dr. Walsh continued. There is growing evidence that certain breeds can provide therapeutic support for animals with special needs. She was thinking of something calm, gentle, patient. A Labrador, maybe a golden retriever, she said. Someone who could be his friend and maybe even help with his physical therapy. At first it seemed impossible. Bobcats and dogs spoke different languages. They had different rhythms, different instincts. But Dr. Walsh shared stories of therapy dogs helping disabled children of animals who healed together, not apart. The key, she said, is finding the right soul. And so the search began. 6 weeks of reaching out to shelters, rescues, and foster homes. Their requirements were strict. The dog had to be gentle, patient, not possessive overfood, and ideally used to other animals. Then they found her. Lucy arrived on a warm April morning. She was a 3-year-old yellow Labrador, mix surrendered by a family moving overseas. Her shelter notes were simple, exceptionally calm. Loves all creatures. When she stepped down from Tim's truck, her tail wagged gently, and her soft brown eyes scanned the world with a quiet, steady intelligence. The introduction was careful. For the first week, Lucy stayed inside the house while the bobcats remained in their outdoor enclosures. They could see each other, smell each other, but never touched any. Yet something beautiful began to unfold. Lucy was curious, but never aggressive. Clark especially seemed intrigued. Then came the first meeting. It happened in the neutral space of the barn. Clark was fitted with his special mobility harness. It helped support his hind legs as he moved. He waited on one side. Lucy sat, calmly 10 feet away. No one knew what to expect then. Without any cue, Lucy lay down, not abruptly, but gently. She lowered her chest to the barn floor and began to belly crawl across the distance, slowly, steadily. When she reached 3 feet from him, she stopped and simply stayed there, tail wagging softly. Clark had been tense, frozen with uncertainty. But in that silence, in that stillness, he relaxed. He dragged himself forward, inched closer until his nose touched her paw. Robin felt her throat catch. "I think we have our match," Tim whispered. In the days that followed, Lucy proved something extraordinary. She seemed to understand Clark's body, his limitations, his quiet frustration. When Clark tried to play, she would shift their body and become his back, rest, letting him lean against her, letting him balance, letting him try. And in every physical therapy session during therapy, Lucy would lie beside the parallel bars they had built, as if offering quiet encouragement. Her stillness, her presence, it was more powerful than words. But what amazed Tim and Robin most, Washoe, Lucy began to adapt her play specifically for Clark. She stopped running. She no longer jumped or barked. Instead, she'd roll softballs gently into his reach. She'd lie down for gentle wrestling, letting Clark use his strong front legs while his back legs remained safely supported. It was not just play, it was trust, it was love. 3 months into their friendship, something extraordinary happened. Tim had been reviewing footage from the security cameras they used to monitor the animals. He had been watching casually until the screen showed something he could hardly believe. Clark had been trying to reach a toy. It had rolled beneath a raised platform. Frustrated, he lunged and toppled over. Within seconds, Lucy stirred. She rushed to his side. She positioned herself next to him and gently leaned against his body, helping him upright again. But she did not stop there. She adjusted her stance and slowly began to rise, keeping her body pressed tightly against Clark's side. Then something miraculous happened. Clark pressed his front paws against her back and pushed for the first time since his injury. He was standing, all 4 legs beneath him, Lucy serving as a living crutch. "Robin," Tim called out, his voice breaking. "You need to see this." They watched the footage again and again. It was not a one-time event. Lucy had developed her own technique, and Clark was beginning to respond that very day. Dr. Walsh was called in. She watched the footage in silence, then conducted a full evaluation. Her voice was steady. "But here eyes were shining. There's still some nerve function," she said softly. "And with Lucy's help, he's using those muscles in ways we never could." A new therapy plan was created twice a day. Under close supervision, Lucy became Clark's physical partner. She would lie flat, letting him crawl over her using her spine. For support, she would stand still while Clark leaned his body against her, practicing weight-bearing on his weakened legs. The progress was slow, but it was real. Within 2 months, Clark began to take short, shaky steps. His sense of balance improved, his awareness of his own body. His proprioception was returning. Dr. Walsh began to document every detail, believing it could change the way animals with disabilities were treated. "What Lucy is doing," she said, "is not just physical therapy. She is giving him motivation, Emotional connection, sensory feedback that no machine can replicate. By autumn, 8 months after Lucy arrived, Clark did what no one thought he ever would. He walked alone. It was not graceful. It was not fast, but it was his. She moved on all 4 legs without help, each step deliberate, careful, full of quiet triumph. It changed everything. Clark could now join Sage and Luna, not just watch, but participate in his own way, at his own pace, and always Lucy was nearby, watching, guarding, stepping between them if things got too rough. Tim captured a photograph that would later appear in wildlife conservation magazines. Clark and Lucy lying in the sun, the bobcat's head resting gently on the dog's neck, both with eyes half closed, wearing the kind of peace that only comes from knowing you are home. A full year had passed since Lucy arrived, and the daily rhythm at the Carter sanctuary had become something even Tim and Robin could never have imagined. Every morning began in the barn for animals, for species rhythms. One family. Lucy ate from an elevated bowl, Clark from a specially crafted station built to accommodate his movement. There were no quarrels, no food guarding, only quiet understanding. Physical therapy had become a shared event while Lucy worked. With Clark, Sage and Luna had learned to participate. They created obstacle courses, challenging each other with fallen logs, low platforms, balance jumps, and Clark and Lucy would follow at their own pace in their own way. Visitors came often, now mostly children, wide-eyed and silent, as they watched a bobcat, once broken, chasing a toy across the grass. And always Lucy by his side. The presentations had changed, too, no longer just about bobcats or conservation. Now they taught about trust, about interspecies healing, about second chances. Dr. Walsh had published a case study, canine-assisted rehabilitation for neurologically compromised wildlife. It sparked conversation in veterinary circles, in sanctuaries, in the hearts of people who'd never thought to ask, what if we just tried differently? One December morning, exactly 1 year since Clark's arrival, Tim and Robin stood at the edge of the enclosure. They watched their animals move through a familiar rituality, lying in a patch of sunlight, Clark beside her, his head resting on her back like a cushioned Sage, and Luna darted past in a mock hunting game, pausing occasionally to bump shoulders or tumble in the dirt. Robin's voice broke the quiet. You know, she said, when we decided to rescue Clark, I thought we were saving him. Tim nodded slowly. But he saved us, too, didn't he? She smiled. We learned that family doesn't have to look like what we imagined at that moment. Lucy lifted her head. Her tail thumped gently against the ground as if she understood. Clark stretched his front legs, reaching forward. Then carefully he adjusted his back legs, displaying the movement they had once thought impossible. The sun spilled across the enclosure, illuminating 4 very different lives, each marked by scars and survival spots and golden fur woven. Together it was a scene that made people pause, a scene that didn't follow rules, but made perfect sense to anyone watching with an open heart. As evening came and the animals settled into their usual sunset rest, Tim stood in silence. He thought about everything it had taken to get here. The permits, the regulations, the heartbreak of losing Rocky, the slow healing of Luna, the uncertain arrival of Clark and the dog who changed it all. Lucy had shown them something science could never quantify, that sometimes the most extraordinary help comes from the most unexpected place. Her quiet strength, her unshakable presence had done what no machine, no textbook, no human ever could across the country. Tim and Robin had become something more than caretakers. They were now mentors, consultants for wildlife cases involving disabled animals. They shared their story across sanctuaries, helped create a network of foster homes equipped for special needs rescues. But beyond the recognition, beyond the ripple effect of their work, what mattered most was the routine they lived each day. The quiet morning feedings, the playful afternoons filled with obstacle courses and discovery, and the evenings, where 4 unlikely companions gathered in peace as night fell across the Montana wilderness. Tim walked the familiar path one last time for the day. The heated barn glowed softly and the dark, fresh straw had been arranged just the way each animal preferred. Lucy had already curled beside Clark, his body tucked gently into hers, the same way he had every night since the day he stood Sage, and Luna rested high on their platforms, occasionally chirping to one another in soft bobcat calls. Sweet dreams, everyone, Tim whispered as he turned out the lights in the darkness. The sounds continued, the low hum of content purring, the steady rhythm of breath, the occasional shift of fur on straw. Tomorrow would bring more therapy, more play, more progress. more togetherness. Another day of proving that, with patience, with understanding, and with love, even the most impossible barriers can be overcome. The story of Clark and Lucy had become more than a success. It had become a lesson, a testament to the unexpected beauty of connection, a reminder that family does not have to follow rules, it just has to feel right. Tim climbed the steps back to the farmhouse, but at the top he paused. Through the window he could just make out their shapes for shadows inside the barn, still safe together. What once felt impossible was now their extraordinary reality. Robin was already in bed, eyes closed but not asleep. "Did you ever think," she asked softly, "that when we started all this it would lead here?" Tim lay beside her and thought of Clark, a fragile cub who taught them what resilience looked like, and of Lucy, a dog who proved that healing does not always come from medicine. "No," he said honestly, "but I am grateful every single day that it did." Outside, the Montana wilderness whispered its ancient songs, and inside the barn, an extraordinary family slept in peace, their dreams filled with sunshine, soft earth, and endless possibilities for tomorrow.